Thanks very much, everyone. I'm learning careful what you send when they ask for your CV before speaking at a conference, because it's embarrassing. Yeah, my name's Peter Turner. Turner comes from lathe worker, by the way, in medieval. So I don't know if they work stone on a lathe, but yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks so much to the organizers for having me. I'm going to say, I guess, a kind of update on the National Quantum Collaboration Initiative. So it's a bit of a diversion from the quantum energy conference theme, but maybe insofar as students are highly dispersive learning machines, this follows from Jared's talk yesterday. I don't know. Before talking about the NQCI, I thought I should say a little bit about SQA in case you don't know about us, and certainly in how we connect to this NQCI initiative. So the SQA is pretty unique, established in 2019, so it's initial funding for 5 years, so we're running into our last year of that. It's a unincorporated joint venture between 4 universities in Sydney and the New South Wales state government. It's $30 million over 5 years. Roughly half of that budget comes from the state and half is contributed by the 4 university partners. So these, I mean, it's no secret, I think, that the SQA model has led to the NQCI initiative, and so it's worth knowing a little bit about how that works. The vision is building Australia's quantum economy. It's not a research organization, and that was very explicit when the SQA was set up. Collaborating with academia, industry, government, harnessing the amazing expertise in Sydney and New South Wales to develop diverse talent and a globally recognized quantum ecosystem. So it's training and ecosystem building. Objectives: train, connect, promote, provide trusted advice. So roughly half of the budget goes into scholarships, and I'll focus on that in the next slide or two. The other half is on this wider engagement vision. So some of the main programs that we run in the talent space, the key one, our largest budget line item, is a PhD scholarship and the PhD experience program. We've awarded 157 scholarships, either full or partial scholarships to date, which is a large chunk of the PhD population in Sydney. And I'll say a little bit more about that in just a sec. We do other things in the training pipeline as well, undergraduate programs. So it was identified early on that the whole pipeline leading into the PhD, of course, is critical in this workforce development grant scheme. So we've created summer scholarships, which are quite familiar, I think, certainly speaking from my undergraduate physics experience, and just expanded these and trying to get more undergraduate students in their second, third year, anywhere in the state, really, to come and join the quantum network over the summer to work on projects and to kind of feed the pipeline that way. So we've created that program. We also do things like internships. And we're not set up to do this, but again, recognizing that the pipeline has to go a long way back, we have done a few outreach programs at the high school level, for example, as well. So this is all a kind of context for NQCI. I said I'd say a bit more about the PhD experience, just again to maybe those unfamiliar with us or these kind of value-added PhD programs. So the students are organizing their own regular academic seminars. They come together roughly once a month. For example, they've had industry versus academia careers panels and industry hackathon. And then we have transferable skills workshops touching on any one of those or other topics that I've listed there. And these are things that are very industry informed, things that industry, in particular quantum startups, are telling us that they're looking for in the people that they are hiring. And I think roughly 50% of students graduating out of quantum programs are going into quantum startups these days. There's also a coursework requirement that's been added to that program. So there's just a snapshot of the SQA PhD experience program, which of course is informing the NQCI. So the other half of what we do, like I say, is engagement, and the number one budget item there is this Quantum Australia conference, and I just wanted to flash up, Kathy mentioned this yesterday, but discounted tickets are still available for a week or two. So please do come and join us in February. Okay, so the NQCI, developing a plan to enhance national collaboration, interconnection, and workforce development across Australia's quantum ecosystem. So similar words to the SQA vision and mission statement stuff. A little bit of background and context here. The NQCI grew out of a 2022 federal election promise, and it's funded out of Department of Industry. If you can remember back that far, there was a quantum promise in the lead up to that election, and NQCI is part of what's come out of that. We're working with the Nous Group, which is a kind of boutique consultancy, and they were involved in the setup of the SQA, so very familiar with the field, and they've been helping us. What follows on, what I'm saying, what's following on is all preliminary, so don't worry too much about the details of the kinds of things that we're learning and suggesting at this point. And maybe the number one thing to keep in mind is, as of right now, there's no money for this program. There was money to do this investigation and this consultation around the country, which is exactly what we've been doing. And really, we see the goal as, taking this report and proposing to government why they might want to fund a larger national workforce scheme. So I'll jump into what we've learned here. So the objectives of the NQCI: encourage national collaboration on the development of future workforce to support and grow the quantum ecosystem. So again, sounding very similar to the SQA objectives in New South Wales. Create that pipeline for quantum skills. Address Australia's quantum skills shortage, which we'll talk about in a second. And retain talent in Australia as well. And increase participation of women in underrepresented communities. So diversity is key, explicit in the NQCI. All right. So this sits in the context of the National Quantum Strategy. To remind us, there are 5 major themes in that strategy that was released in May. Research, infrastructure, workforce, standards, and responsible innovation, I think, roughly to summarize, and the NQCI sits inside that third pillar. So very much in that workforce, we're interpreting this in the workforce and skills space, but of course it has overlaps with all these other things. But in the first instance, we're focusing on that. So here are projected quantum jobs in Australia. So I'm sure we've all seen and heard the CSIRO figures from the roadmap a few years ago. And I think Kathy and others have referred to them as conservative, and we do here as well. They're the dark bars in this chart on workforce needs in the quantum industry over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And we've compared those to other numbers out of Eureka, which we saw a slide yesterday, organization out of the UK. And I think that makes it clear we've kind of scaled Eureka's estimates to Australia's size of the kind of quantum activity, if you like, globally. And you can see that those CSIRO numbers are fairly conservative when you do that kind of comparison. So I think the CSIRO roadmap projections should be viewed as a bare minimum for the workforce going forward, looking at these kinds of numbers. And in order to do that, we've done some modeling, or more specifically, Nous has done some modeling on PhD commencements, masters, even into VET undergraduate as well. And the line through the middle is roughly how to the number of commencements we need each year to hit that CSIRO, so that what we would call the minimum conservative target. This is just modeling. These are the kinds of things to get across. Obviously, that the message here being we need to get a lot more people into this field as quickly as possible. So a bit on the consultations, and I hope if you're in the room and you're in the field in Australia, I hope you got a chance to engage with Nous on these consultations over the last few months. We've spoken to over 200 stakeholders, quantum-focused academics at the unis, of course, being a key group of stakeholders, higher education and institution leaders, so trying to get, let's say, the decision makers at the universities on board as well, and not just the academics. The students, of course, and hearing from them and what they have to say around this topic. Peak bodies, including, and forgive me, I've forgotten what some of these acronyms mean, but Australian Academy of Science, Universities of Australia, Group of 8, and others. State and territory governments, in particular chief scientists around the country. Industry, so startups, multinationals, and venture capital have been consulted. And diversity and inclusion experts, including Australia's Women in STEM ambassadors. So just to try to get across that we have tried our best to consult with this wide group of stakeholders and learn what we can. I think the next, just to remind us, the pipeline is much more than PhDs, although that I'm going to argue is a key focus for the program, and that is these other areas, master's, undergraduate, VET, short courses and upskilling for people that are already in careers are all in scope for this thing. And I don't expect you to read all this, of course, but there's a bit of a summary of the kinds of things that we've learned from these consultations. I think key points are that PhDs are not long enough, certainly comparing with other programs around the world. Regional, the inability for people around the country in regions, for example, to engage with a lot of the great research and training that are going on in some of the more urban centers in Australia, those kinds of things. But largely not super surprising to those of us that are in the field. And it was kind of floated in these consultations, the idea of, what could we recommend to government around a national structure. This one isn't really an option, but you got to put it on the list. Do nothing. Just let things go as they are. Roughly, there's kind of three ideas were floated, a kind of loose, in increasing strength of the role nationally, right? So loose collaboration, national network, local nodes, and a strong national coordinator of this kind of quantum training around the country, whatever that looks like. And I guess not surprisingly, people gravitated towards something in the middle there, something not too loose and not too strong. So the consultations led to an idea of the NQCI could possibly be a kind of, here we go, a new national body that would act as a it would support both local and national, basically people working at both the local and national levels and connect them. I've already said that. Drive engagement, run events, and expand pathways to study in quantum locally and nationally. Collect data and do this 3 minutes, okay. And feedback. Here's a list of the kinds of ideas. Again, I don't expect you to read it. Some of them are not too surprising. I want to focus in on the interest of time on PhDs. So here are, I believe this is I think this might also be Eureka data as well, on looking at quantum job adverts and looking at the distribution of required degrees for those jobs. And you can see that they're dominated by PhD training. So we hear a lot about, of course, there's a wider pipeline. I've mentioned it myself. We hear a lot from industry saying, we don't just need PhDs, but right now in the field, it is still dominated by the need for PhD training. And so that's where we feel like the focus needs to be. More evidence of this. I'm on the advisory board for the program I used to run in Bristol, and I heard that the UK is doubling the number of quantum centers for doctoral training in the UK. And that's on top of the fact that the Center for Doctoral Training program is across all of EPSRC, Science and Research and Engineering, and that program is roughly being cut in half. So while they are cutting the program in half nationally, they are doubling the number of quantum CDTs, to give you an idea of what's going on nationally. So this is a bit kind of my PhD training wish list, and I'm very happy for people to come and talk to me afterwards on what you might think. First of all, a cohort model I think is critical. Getting students working together for a certain period of time before they go off and do their research more independently. We've seen the benefits of this, and I think this is recognized at a lot of levels, certainly in government here in Australia as well. PhD duration greater than or equal to 4 years. I think, again, we need to get up to kind of what's now a global minimum in PhD training, and the CDT programs in the UK were part of an effort to do that kind of thing. And maybe this is the key one for me. The number one piece of feedback we've had, again, in the program in Bristol, was a terrible way to describe it, but try before you buy model. 1 year of training that's supervisorless. So the students can join the program without a supervisor. They get trained, coursework, the kinds of things like the PhD experience program in Sydney, value-added, transferable skills, etc. And then they choose their supervisor after that first year. This empowers the students. They feel they're in a much better position to choose their PhD project and supervisor going forward. They're much more confident, and it leads to better outcomes. And it increases diversity. It's much easier to get into this field if you don't have to go through this kind of social network of finding a PhD supervisor before you join. And we're seeing, it takes time, but we're seeing this play out, for example, in the CDT's program. Finally, just to be clear, programs like this, it doesn't replace the PhD training programs. This is in addition to. So for example, if you're an amazing student who knows exactly who you want to work with, exactly what project you want to be on, this program isn't for you. Right? This is a new program in order to expand things, especially facing industry. So I just saw this the other day. I heard this on the radio. I guess this is maybe an example. I don't know much about this program, but I guess I'm just putting it up there as an example that there are national schemes to focus in certain areas, certainly in tech, to build skills. So it's not crazy, I guess. And just to say that the proposal is due to DISR in March, and we're going to propose something given that feedback and whatnot along this kind of nationally coordinated set of nodes kind of idea. And I guess a key thing like the SQA is that we'll in order to get this through government at all, there has to be co-investment by those local nodes, whether they're universities, states, university-state joint ventures or whatnot. Yeah, so with that, I'll just say thanks. And please do talk to me. I'm here for today and tomorrow if you have thoughts on this. Thanks again.
I like the try before you buy aspect of the PhD training. There's quite common in the US for a bunch of programs. However, that really doesn't interface well with the current Australian paradigm where the RHD funding is very tightly tied typically to an advisor. So would you be pushing, in general to be trying to I want to say, get away from, the advisor has got the golden ticket versus having students carrying their own funding with them?
Yeah. So it would very much be trying to move things towards the latter. So the students take the funding with them, depending on where they choose to go after that first year. Absolutely.